Across 600 years, generations of monks lived out their lives on the rock we're visiting tonight. We know the name of exactly one of them. It's written in the old Annals of Ireland, the year 824, one line, in the flat voice the annals use for everything, a coronation or a comet. Étgal of Skellig was carried off by the heathens and died soon after of hunger and thirst. That's all. One sentence, one name, and we only have that much because of the worst day in the island's history, when the Viking ships finally found it. Which raises the question that will keep us company tonight. What were they doing there at all? Because this is not an island the way Iona is an island. Green, low, farmable. This is a splinter of rock with its feet 700 feet down in the Atlantic, 7 miles and more from the nearest mainland, sheer as a cathedral and nearly as bare. Seabirds nest on it. Waves the size of houses break on it. And for 6 centuries, on a terrace near its summit, a handful of men in beehive huts of dry stone sang the psalms into the wind and called it home. Tonight, the far edge of the world, Skellig Michael. Welcome back to Sleepy Saints. We've learned the 3 colours of martyrdom, and we've sailed with Columba, the prince who gave up Ireland. Tonight we meet the men who looked at exile on a pleasant green island and decided it was too easy. As always, nothing is required of you. The sea tonight is doing all the work. If you drift off somewhere on the crossing, the boatman knew the way without you. We begin on the Kerry coast, at the very end of Europe. Stand on the cliffs of the Iveragh Peninsula in the southwest of Ireland and look out to sea. On a clear day you'll see them on the horizon, 2 pyramids of rock, blue-grey with distance, like the last 2 teeth of a drowned mountain range. The Irish word for a splinter of stone is Sceilg. So the Skelligs. The nearer one, Little Skellig, wears a strange white cap, not snow but birds, tens of thousands of gannets, one of the greatest colonies on earth, wheeling around it like slow smoke. No one has ever lived there. The farther one is Great Skellig, Skellig Michael, as it would come to be called. Twin peaks, a saddle of grass between them, 700 feet of near vertical rock. From the mainland it looks, frankly, like a place God made for no one. And that, if you've been with us since the first episode, is exactly why they came. You'll remember the problem the Irish monks had inherited. They burned to give everything to God in a land with no deserts to flee to and no persecutors to face. They made deserts of bogs and forests. They made exile their martyrdom, sailing from everything they loved. But there is always a further step. Somewhere in Ireland, tradition points to a saint named Fionnan, though the truth is the founding is lost. Somewhere, someone looked at that splinter on the horizon and heard in the phrase of the psalm, deep calling unto deep. The desert at last, an Egypt made of ocean. We don't know exactly when the first curragh made the crossing, By the 700s at the latest, the monastery was there. Picture that first approach as every approach since. The rock growing from a smudge to a wall, the birds' cries getting louder, the swell heaving at the base of the cliffs, and no harbour. Just a cleft in the stone where, between one wave and the next, a boat might dart in and men might scramble out. The Atlantic does not welcome you to Skellig Michael. It merely occasionally fails to stop you. From the landing, they built stairways, cut into the rock, or laid stone by stone up the slopes, more than 600 steps, climbing out of the reach of the spray, up through the screaming colonies of birds, up where the grass grows in the wind shadow, to a terrace tucked under the northeast peak, 600 feet above the sea. And there they built one of the wonders of the early medieval world. 6 huts and 2 small chapels of flat stones laid dry, no mortar, not a thimble of it, each course stepping a little inward over the one below, closing over at last like a beehive. The technique is called corbelling, and it is old and simple and done perfectly, almost immortal. Every stone tilts slightly outward so that rain cannot run in, only out. Done perfectly, I said. Hear this, after some 1,200 years of Atlantic storms, cells on that terrace are still dry inside. The huts of nameless monks, 7 miles out in the ocean, have outlasted nearly every palace in Europe. How many lived there? Perhaps a dozen monks and an abbot, the number of Columba's boat, the number of the Apostles' table. They caught rainwater in stone cisterns. They grew what vegetables would grow in little walled gardens of made soil, seaweed and sand, carried up 600 steps. They fished. They took the eggs of seabirds and the birds themselves. Trading boats brought the rest when the sea allowed. And around that thin thread of survival, they wrapped the same plain rhythm we saw on Iona, the hours of prayer turning through the day like a wheel, psalms at dawn with the gannets going out, psalms at night with the puffins muttering under the floor. And then, each year, the great test, winter. From autumn the seas rise and the door of weather swings shut, sometimes for weeks on end. No boat can land, no word can reach them. If a man sickened in January, the island was his infirmary. If the barley ran short, the island was his larder. Nights up there when the storm came fully in, the whole rock humming like a struck bell, spray, sea spray, bursting over cells 600 feet above the waterline, and inside each dark dome, one small man on his knees, dry, listening to the Atlantic argue with the archangel. The world reduced to 12 men, a rock, and God. And when a brother died, for men lived out whole lives on that terrace and ended them there, they laid him in a little walled plot beside the chapels, under slabs and low stone crosses cut from the island's own rock. The monk's graveyard, it's called now. It is smaller than a kitchen. It held generations. No inscriptions, or none that survive. No here lies anybody. Just the crosses, leaning together in the wind like a huddle of the brothers themselves, keeping their last vigil in the one posture the rock ever taught them. Hold that image. We'll need it at the end. To a modern eye, the whole arrangement looks like deprivation with a view. But listen to what it is in the language of our series. The white martyrdom, the leaving, they had done. Every man there had put a sea between himself and everything soft and beloved. And the green martyrdom, the daily death of fasting, vigil and labour, the rock enforced better than any abbot could. Skellig Michael is both colours at once, built in stone. A place engineered, as deliberately as its stairways, for men who wanted nothing left between themselves and heaven. But whether? And for a few, even that was not enough. On the island's other peak, the higher, sharper one, there are ledges near the summit, 700 feet up, where you must climb with your hands. And on those ledges, the ruins of a hermitage, a tiny oratory, a rain basin, a platform the size of a hearthrug hanging over the open sea. Some monks over the years found the monastery too comfortable. 6 huts and a garden, too much world, and they went up past the last grass to pray alone on a shelf of stone with the clouds going by below them. We will never know a single thing they said up there. Perhaps that was the point. For centuries, the rock's poverty was its wall. There was nothing to steal but men and weather. Then, at the end of the 700s, a new kind of ship entered Irish waters, fast, shallow, dragon-headed, and the long peace of the Irish Church, the peace that had made red martyrdom only a story from the old books, ended. The annals begin their grim drumbeat. Monasteries burned, shrines stripped, monks taken. In 823 or 824, the ships found even the splinter in the sea. The Vikings scaled the rock, plundered what little there was, and carried off the abbot. Étgal, our one name. They did not ransom him. The annals say only that he died in their hands, of hunger and of thirst. An abbot of the great fast, starved by force. The white martyr's rock had given Ireland a red martyr at last, in the one way no one had wanted. We'll return to that turning of the age, white into red, at the end of our series. But mark what the monks did next, because it is the quietest heroism in this whole story. They went back. The ships came again. The annals record another raid within the generation, and still the community held its rock for 2 more centuries. And somewhere in those years, the island gained its guardian and its lasting name. It was dedicated to Michael, the archangel, captain of the hosts of heaven, the old church's keeper of high and embattled places. He has a habit of taking the summits, Monte Gargano in Italy, Mont Saint-Michel in France, St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall, and this, the wildest of them all, Skellig Michael, the Archangel's Rock. No one conquered Skellig Michael, but in the end, something subtler than the Vikings came for it, the weather itself. Around the 12th century, the climate of the North Atlantic began to turn, colder, stormier. The seas around the rock harder and more often shut. And the church in Ireland was changing too. The age of the wild hermit island was giving way to an age of orders and rules and cloisters on the mainland. Sometime in those years, the community crossed to the shore for good, to the sheltered sands of Skellig, keeping the old rock in their name and keeping it for centuries after as a place of pilgrimage. The beehive cells stood empty. The puffins moved in. The world found the rock again slowly. Lighthouse men in the 1800s hauling their lives up the old steps. Then travellers. In 1910, the playwright George Bernard Shaw, no man's idea of a mystic, was rowed out and climbed to the cells, and wrote afterward, shaken, that this was the most fantastic and impossible rock in the world, a place that belonged not to our world at all, but, in his words, to our dream world. The dreamers keep coming. The rock has been named a treasure of all humanity. Film crews have even borrowed it to stand in for a holy island at the far end of a galaxy. And if you have ever seen those films, know that the beehive cells are not a set. They are the real thing, still standing, still dry, exactly where the nameless hands left them. One name out of 600 years. It bothered me once. It doesn't anymore, and I'll tell you why. Do you remember our first episode? A scribe in Cambrai, whose name we also do not have, who copied a page he couldn't read, and saved the sermon on the 3 martyrdoms for us all. The tradition we've been following simply does not run on names. It runs on work done well and offered up. A page copied, a wall corbelled true, a psalm sung on a ledge to an audience of gannets and God. The men of Skellig built without mortar and without monuments, and their home has outlived their names by 12 centuries, which they would tell you is a perfectly fair trade, since the names were the only part they never valued. Next time, we take the strangest voyage in this whole series, a saint who set out from this same Kerry coast into the open west, looking for the promised land of the saints, Brendan the navigator, and the voyage that became legend. Pack nothing. That's rather the theme. But for tonight, no more climbing. If sleep is near, let it come. Let the island keep its own watch tonight. It's very good at it. Sleep well. God keep you. And may you wake in the place of your resurrection.